Hello everyone, this is Trevor, and welcome to a very different episode of Design Twist. Today I'm going to be talking about a few theories that I have about the Pokemon Paras and its evolution Parasect, while I show video of me coloring 3 awesome commissions I got of Parasect from 3 really cool artists that I'm going to shout out in the video. So for people who haven't seen Paras in a Pokemon game, especially people who haven't played one of the Generation 1 titles, Paras is a little bug grass Pokemon that has mushrooms growing on its back. And these are parasitic mushrooms that eventually, when the Pokemon evolves, completely take over the Pokemon's mind, or at least its movement. Paras is mainly found in Mount Moon, which is an early game cave after you get the first badge, and Parasect is mainly found in Cerulean Cave, which is actually a post-game location you can only visit after you've defeated all the gym leaders, the Elite Four, and become the champion. This is the cave where you find Mewtwo, but we're not talking about Mewtwo, we're talking about an important Pokemon, and that's Parasect. And even though these locations will be visited by the player extremely far away, like chronologically, post-game and then early game with 1 badge, these are caves that you'll visit really far apart. You'll have a whole adventure in between visiting these 2 locations. But geographically, they are right next to each other. Cerulean Cave is practically the first place you find after exiting Mount Moon for the first time. It's right there. You just can't go there, so it's something that you think about in the back of your mind and come back to for the last challenge to catch the big, strongest Pokemon in the original Pokemon games. There is another location where it's found, but we'll talk about that later. One more thing I want to go over before I start is I want to address a conceit with Pokemon evolution. I want to think about Pokemon evolution as more of a natural occurrence of its life cycle. Like a Pokemon will naturally be leveling up, becoming older, becoming more mature as it lives. So no level 100 Parasect that is the child of a level 6 Paras that's never trained. That's a little weird, even though Paras's evolution is mainly tied to the maturity of the mushroom as far as the lore is concerned. Anyway, I'm just yapping. This is moving on. So for the first theory, I'm going to call this cave migration theory. This is a collection of assumptions about how Paras move throughout their life. So since we only find Paras, and only find Paras up to level 12 in Mount Moon, it's kind of implied that Paras hatch in this cave, or at least close to this cave, to where really early in their life cycle, before they've learned powerful moves, before the thought of evolving into Parasect at, I believe, level 24 even crosses their minds, they are living in Mount Moon. Now, it sucks to be Paras, and I'm probably going to say that a few times in this video. It sucks to be a Paras, because in Generation 1, Bug is weak to poison, and Paras is a bug/grass type. And Bug and Grass are both weak to poison, and they are both weak to flying, and they are both weak to fire. So Paras has a ×4 weakness to 3 different types, and that is incredibly unique and terrible to imagine the predators that live in that area. Zubat, a poison flying type. Ekans right outside the cave. I believe Pidgey and probably maybe Spearow, I don't think so. But right outside the cave, you got flying types, poison types everywhere. And not only that, but there's another reason that fire is really bad for Paras that I'll talk about in the next theory. But it sucks to be a Paras. And in this cave of Mount Moon, the only prey that Paras could possibly have are Geodude and Zubat. Zubat being a Pokemon that is both poison and flying, the predator-prey relationship between those 2 creatures is probably going to be the other way around. Paras are probably going to be avoiding Zubat. And then on the other hand, Geodude is a rock. I don't know how Paras is supposed to defeat a rock. Despite being a grass type, in Generation 1 it doesn't learn any grass moves. It takes dozens of levels before this thing learns Spore, and a dozen more before it learns Slash. It is fighting this Geodude with nothing but the weakest bug move in the entire game. I feel sorry for this thing. Maybe it's eating Clefairy, I have no idea. Those things are rare. So the thought of cave migration theory is that there are interconnected tunnels that connect Mount Moon and Cerulean Cave. Because if Parasect exists in Cerulean Cave, the evolution, but not in Mount Moon, in order for these creatures to be reproducing, they have to be laying eggs in Mount Moon. So there are probably tunnels within this cave structure that allow the Parasect to migrate back to a less aggressive and competitive part of the cave where only Geodude and Zubat live, to lay their eggs and then go back to Cerulean Cave, in a place where we wouldn't be able to see them because humans wouldn't be able to travel through these specific parts of the cave. And that would make sense because you wouldn't want to have baby level 1 Parases in Cerulean Cave full of extremely powerful creatures that could prey on them really easily. So I imagine it could be like baby turtles in real life, how they have to get back into the ocean because they hatch on the shore. It could be a rite of passage for the Paras to be born near Mount Moon and then survive in that ecosystem and then make the trek to Cerulean Cave eventually as they mature. But unfortunately for Paras and Parasect, when the mother lays the eggs, they leave the spores from the giant mushroom on the eggshells, so as Paras hatch and then grow, these parasitic mushrooms naturally grow on the backs of this bug, and by the time they're strong enough to be evolving or treated as a Parasect, the bug itself has died and the mushroom has taken over and is now controlling the creature. It's so tragic. It's such a tragic creature. But I think the idea that Mount Moon is just where young Paras live, and then Cerulean Cave is where the mature version of that creature nests, interesting. It's a cool idea to me. The second theory is one that I'm going to be calling exile theory, and it's based on the idea that Paras are exiled at a certain point from Mount Moon. And it could go a couple different ways. If a Paras gets strong enough, high level enough, if it's strictly based on the level, the strength of the creature, once it becomes so powerful that it is out-competing all the other Paras in the pack, I guess, I don't know what you'd call a group of insects, hive, something like that. Once a group of Paras realize that one of them is becoming too powerful, it's like, hey, get out of here. And that might be, drawing back to the previous theory, when it starts its migration to Cerulean Cave. Hey, you're too strong, you're eating all the Geodudes and the Zubats, there's no food left for us, get out of here. But on the other hand, it could also be based on the size of the mushrooms on it. If the Paras in the group realize that one of their mushrooms, if it's getting close to, I would say, the death of the creature, if the mushrooms are starting to take over and they're getting too big, it's like, hey man, you got bit by a zombie, you're about to turn, you have to get out of here. But then that would also imply that Parasect could feed on Paras. Oh god, is that another theory that I'm about to add? Cannibalism theory? We'll lump that in with exile theory. If they know that Parasect eat Paras, that's a totally different deal. I'm thinking about that right now. It's not part of the original script. That's horrible. Yeah, definitely. You're exiled. Get out of here. But when a Paras is exiled, there's two ways for it to get to Cerulean Cave. There's the hypothetical cave structure tunnels thing that I brought up in the previous theory, but then there's also the way that you would get there. You exit Mount Moon through the entrance towards Cerulean City, and then you would walk towards Cerulean City, cross a small river, and be at Cerulean Cave. Now, when you first get here as a player, you don't have the ability to cross that river. But a Paras sure would. You know, they don't care about water. And honestly, the type of creature it is, it would probably prefer a damp area. Its hidden ability is actually damp. So it would probably want a cave that has a lot more water, because Mount Moon is dry. There is no water. Cerulean Cave has a ton of water. And one of Paras's other abilities is Dry Skin, which literally heals you when you're in rain and damages you when you're in direct sunlight. It sucks to be a Paras, because if you have to get exiled and walk from one cave to another, if you have to go outside of the cave, you are taking damage the entire time. As long as there's, if it's overcast, then cool. It's a little bit better to be a Paras. But Dry Skin also makes you take twice as much damage from fire-type moves, and you're already times 4 weak to fire. God forbid a trainer with a Charmander walks up, you're getting torched. So the struggle that Paras would have to go through to get excommunicated from its herd and kicked out of the cave and have to walk through direct sunlight trying to find another place, like your Solid Snake crawling through the microwave hallway, is just awful. It's awful to think about, but do the Paras in Mount Moon have any idea that there's a giant, wonderful cave full of water for them to live in right next door? It's interesting and ironic and poetic if you think about it. But perhaps the struggle of doing that is what strengthens the Paras up to the level of Parasect that are found in that cave, or outright kills them and lets the mushroom take over. Which is why the only Paras-type creatures that live in Cerulean Cave are ones that have been fully taken over by the mushroom. Which brings me to the third theory, Cordyceps theory. And if you've watched a couple of videos by Game Theory, you've probably heard of Cordyceps, because it's a scary concept to apply to science fiction and horror, where there is a fungus, a specific type of the Cordyceps fungus, that infects insects, mainly specific types of ants. And the effect that this fungus has on the ant, that has been determined through however many millions of years of evolution, is that it makes the creature seek out specific environments that help the fungus thrive when the ant dies. So it kind of, like, from what I've read, attaches itself to the nervous system or muscle groups in the ant, and like makes the ant either desire to or forces the ant to go to a place on a leaf in the sun and clamp onto the leaf and then just sit there and atrophy until it dies, and then the fungus sprouts from the body of the ant and spreads its spores. It's horrifying. And so it'll infect ants nearby that are crawling through the soil and then spread more spores that way, which turn into a graveyard of a bunch of dead ants or spiders or whatever that have been infected by this thing. So it's not really much of a theory that Paras are in a parasitic relationship. It's literally part of their name, or their name is part of Parasite. So at a certain level 24 perhaps, Paras are killed by the parasite, and perhaps it is the mushroom that makes the Paras crave sunlight, even though it will hurt it. But, based on evolution, it would help the mushroom for the Paras to die. So the mushroom could want the Paras to, hey, go outside, start walking outside into the sun. And there are diseases and things out there that do unspeakable things to the brain, but the mushroom could make the Paras crave sunlight, and then that could kill it. And then once the Paras dies, and the parasite can take over the host's body like it does in Pokemon, like it does for this Parasect shell, it could then say, alright, now that the Paras is dead, I want moisture. And the nearest place nearby that has a ton of moisture would be Cerulean Cave. And then Cerulean Cave might actually be a better place for Parasect to prey on other Pokemon. Like I mentioned before, it has a ton of water, meaning that comes with a ton of fish that are all going to be weak to grass. We're looking at Seadra, Seaking, Kingler, Goldeen, Poliwag, it's a bunch of them. But there are Pokemon that would be predators for Parasect, which honestly just makes for a more balanced ecosystem. It's going to be hard to fight Dodrio, it's going to be hard to fight Golbat, or Raichu, maybe, I don't know. But then there are also Psychic types, Kadabra and Hypno, which are going to be weak to Bug. They might not be able to fight Parasect. And if Hypno's trying to put you to sleep, well, hey, you're not going to get a better sleep move than Spore. If you try to put me to sleep and you mess up your Hypnosis move, well, guess what? I'm putting you to sleep with my spores, and I'm just going to eat you because I'm a bug. Like, it's honestly terrifying. Hypno should probably stay away. They'd be like, I'll mess with anybody, but that thing, it scares me. But any way you slice it, it just seems like Paras are born in Mount Moon and somehow end up in Cerulean Cave, for better or for worse. Probably for worse because they die and get replaced by a mushroom. But the theory that I like the most is my fourth theory, which is reintroduction theory. Now, I mentioned earlier that Paras are mainly found in Mount Moon, and Parasect are mainly found in Cerulean Cave. But there's one other location in the original games where both of them are found, and that is the Safari Zone. Now, the Safari Zone is weird because it's kind of like a safari where you can look at the animals in their natural habitat, or at least a constructed natural habitat, but it's also a place where a child can walk in with rocks and balls and just catch the Pokemon and throw rocks at them and take them. So it's kind of weird. It's like controlled poaching, but also conservation. It's incredibly strange. But we're just going to look at it like it's a zoo/conservation center for these Pokemon. And what I find so interesting about Paras and Parasect being found in this location is that Paras, I should say both of them are found directly sandwiching the level a Paras evolves. So Paras are found in the early 20s, level 20 to 24, I believe, or level 20, 23, something like that. And then the Parasect are found from level 25 to 30. So it's almost like the Paras have been brought here and put on display for the guests of the Safari Zone so that they can see the moment a Paras gets fully taken over by the mushroom and then turn into Parasect. And then this would be the only place a person in the Kanto region would be able to see Paras and Parasect interacting with each other. And this is probably really educational for the people who are showing up and seeing how a school of Paras actually interact with one another, but then also for the study of how the Pokemon evolves, the study of how the fungus multiplies, the study of how these spores are put on the eggshell and then hatch. Like, this process is probably how the humans of this world learned everything that they know about Paras and Parasect. But then since the Parasect are only found up to level 30, but then Parasect and Cerulean Cave are found at level, I think 47 or something, it's a really high level. I'm thinking that after the Parasects have matured past their use of education and teaching people how the Paras evolve, you have to kind of call out some of the Pokemon in the murder of Paras and put them somewhere else, reintroduce them back into the ecosystem. So Cerulean Cave could be the perfect place where they could take Parasect and just shove them into this cave. I mean, the cave has a guard in front of it. Mewtwo is in that cave. Nothing about this cave screams natural. There are wildly occurring Magneton, Dodrio, Kadabras, Dittos, which that's a whole different theory that Ditto is connected to Mewtwo. But this cave is very strange, and it kind of just feels like a Pokemon landfill where they just tossed stuff. That's kind of a dark way to put it, but I think it's cool for Parasect to be a Pokemon that they've reintroduced, even if it's not in a cynical way. Is this a controlled ecosystem that they have created for Pokemon that are either too dangerous, too high level, or like predators, or Pokemon that are invasive, or overpopulating an area, and they can take certain amounts of those Pokemon, put them in Cerulean Cave? It would have been really cool for the Pokemon in Cerulean Cave to be the same Pokemon found in the Safari Zone. So we could see, like, oh, when Pokemon get too old, or we have to take them out of the Safari Zone, or they're not cooperating with the other Pokemon in the group, we can put them here and just kind of dump them. It might have been a cool secondary plot line for Fire Red and Leaf Green or something. That would be cool. If I made a Pokemon game, I'd have some crazy plot like that. But that's the basics of my, like, reintroduction theory, putting them back out into the environment so that they can live in the wild again. Especially if people understood that Cerulean Cave and Mount Moon were connected, which would let the Parasect then go lay eggs in the place where the Paras were found originally. Or if Parasect were already in Cerulean Cave, then we can just take these ones from the Safari Zone and push them in Cerulean Cave. There's already Parasects in there, and they'll be right back in their normal habitat, their normal ecosystem. I find that really cool. Anyway, that's my Paras theories. I wonder, which one do you like the most? Which one do you think is the most likely? In this video, I colored some awesome works by Maddie B, Astro Zerk, and Bug Rider, and I'm going to show their information on the screen and link to their blue skies. I'm sorry, Bug Rider, for having the little text in the corner of your drawing that says Art by Astro Zerk. I forgot to change it between the drawings, but when I'm editing, I'll put up a really big one in the corner of the screen that nobody will be able to miss. All of these drawings were really cool. I commissioned all these artists, so if you want to pay them to draw some stuff, please go check if their commissions are open. They're all super cool, and I had fun coloring all of these. I just gave them the prompt that I was making a video about Parasect, and I wanted them to draw their own funky version or regional variant of Paras or Parasect, and they all knocked it out of the park. Thanks for helping me out with the video, y'all. You're really cool. I might do more of these in the future if I end up sitting down and overthinking a Pokemon for too long. They'll probably be focused on the early gens, 1 through 3 maybe, before the Pokemon story got really complex, before we got to the point where we're talking about gods. I do like Gen 4, 5, 6 going on. I haven't played Gen 9 at all. I'm so sorry. But there's just something about the slapdash randomness of those first few games that has me nostalgic. I played them between when I was 8 and 11 years old, so it's always going to hold a special place in my heart. And I hope this video connects with a lot of people who could listen to me yap about Paris for probably 20 to 25 minutes. I don't know how long this video is going to be. But thanks for watching. You can check out some more of my videos. I got a bunch of Pokemon content. In about, I want to say 2 weeks, I'm going to have a massive Five Nights at Freddy's video that's over an hour on my channel. So if you like that too, please subscribe, stick around. Like the video just for the algorithm. And a lot of people don't say this, but if you tag me on a comment on Blue, you don't even have to comment on this video. If you comment on my Blue Sky, tag me. That would be awesome. I love seeing notifications on Blue Sky, and I'll definitely respond. I mean, unless I get like 200,000 responses, and then I might not respond to yours, but I probably won't. So at this point, I'm just yapping, but if you watched enough of the video, you probably like this energy anyway. I like Pokemon. You like Pokemon if you listened this long. So I might make more Pokemon theories in the future, but I hope to see y'all there. And check out my Etsy if you want to get some stickers or prints. I got Pokemon stuff, Deltarune stuff, Five Nights at Freddy's, some anime. Go check it out. And yeah, thanks again for watching the video. It's been really cool, and I hope to see y'all in the comments and on social media and stuff. I'm really happy to get back to YouTube because it's been like 2 months since I made a video. I have written 52 pages for this next video that I'm making, and I got really tunnel visioned into it. I got sick for 3 weeks. A lot of stuff happened over the last 2 months, but I'm good. And thank you for watching. Peace.